At 12:41 a.m. on the quiet early morning of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 left Kuala Lumpur International Airport. It was a routine flight, one that thousands of planes make every single day. The aircraft was a Boeing 777, one of the safest, most reliable, most thoroughly tested commercial jets ever built. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Families heading on vacation, businessmen returning home, students beginning study abroad, children excited to see Beijing, adults settling into seats, expecting nothing more than a smooth 6-hour journey. Nothing seemed unusual. The weather was calm, the aircraft was well maintained, the two pilots were experienced and respected. Air traffic control cleared MH370 for takeoff, and the plane ascended into the night sky, its lights disappearing into the darkness over the South China Sea. But less than 1 hour later, something extraordinary happened. Something that remains unexplained, unsolved, and deeply unsettling even a decade later. Because MH370 did not complete its journey. It did not arrive in Beijing. It did not land anywhere. It simply vanished. Not slowly, not with warning, not with a distress call. Just gone. What followed was not only one of the greatest aviation mysteries in modern history, but also one of the most frustrating, puzzling, and heartbreaking investigations ever conducted. Tonight, we retrace every known step of the flight. We break down what actually happened. We explore every major theory. We analyze every contradiction. And we try to understand how a fully operational Boeing 777 could disappear in the 21st century, an age of satellites, radars, global tracking systems, and digital surveillance.
This is the story of MH370, the plane that vanished without a trace. The flight departed Kuala Lumpur with Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah at the controls. He was 53 years old, a veteran with more than 18,000 hours of flying time, known as calm, disciplined, and deeply passionate about aviation. His first officer, Farik Abdul Hamid, was younger, completing one of his final training flights. Together, they made a capable and experienced team. The aircraft climbed to cruising altitude. Everything appeared normal. Passengers settled in, the crew prepared for meal service. The plane headed northeast, following a standard airway toward Vietnam. At 1:19 a.m., the captain made a routine radio transmission. It was calm, professional, and completely unremarkable. He said, "Good night, Malaysian 370. This was the final time anyone ever heard from MH370. 2 minutes later, something happened that would change everything. The plane's transponder, the device that identifies an aircraft to civilian radar, stopped transmitting. This is an extremely rare event. Transponders do not fail easily. They don't turn off by themselves. They can stop working due to catastrophic damage, or they can be manually switched off inside the cockpit. At that moment, MH370 disappeared from civilian radar screens. Air traffic controllers had no idea where the plane was, but the plane did not cease flying. Not yet. Malaysian military radar continued tracking the aircraft, and what they saw was astonishing. MH370 made a sharp left turn. Not a gentle drift, not an autopilot correction, a deliberate turn that took the plane off its flight path and back over the Malay Peninsula. The aircraft then flew across the country, passed near Penang, and headed toward the Strait of Malacca. This was not a normal route. It was not accidental. It was controlled. Someone was commanding the plane. But who? And why? No distress signal was sent, no emergency code, no hijacking announcement. Radio silence. just a silent Boeing 777 flying in the wrong direction. After crossing the strait, the plane continued northwest toward the Andaman Sea, and then it disappeared from military radar as well. It seemed as if MH370 had simply slipped beyond the edge of the world. But in reality, it kept flying. The only evidence came from something unexpected: the Inmarsat satellite pings. A satellite located 22,000 miles above Earth received periodic handshake signals from MH370's satellite communication system. These were not intentional transmissions, they were automated signals exchanged every hour. These pings did not provide exact coordinates, but they did reveal one crucial fact. MH370 continued flying for 6 more hours. This means the plane did not suffer sudden catastrophic failure. It did not explode mid-air. It did not crash near Vietnam. It was airborne until at least 8:19 a.m. The satellite data generated 2 possible paths, one north toward Central Asia, one south into the empty Indian Ocean. But the northern path crossed heavily monitored airspace of India, China, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, all countries with comprehensive military radar. A Boeing 777 cannot enter these zones unnoticed. No radar station detected anything. So investigators concluded the only feasible route was the southern corridor, a path deep into the Indian Ocean, a path no commercial airliner would ever take. A path with no airports, no islands, and no safe landing zones. The question now was, did the plane head there intentionally, or was it flying on autopilot after the crew became incapacitated? To answer this, investigators examined the early turns. The turnback over the peninsula was sharp, precise, and consistent with manual input. If the crew were incapacitated at that time, autopilot would not make such a maneuver. Yet after several turns, the plane seemed to settle into a long straight route over the Indian Ocean, consistent with autopilot cruising. One possibility is that something happened gradually. For example, cabin depressurization could cause the pilots and passengers to lose consciousness. If the oxygen masks failed, the entire cabin could become incapacitated. The aircraft would then continue flying until running out of fuel. But if such a failure occurred, why did the transponder turn off? Why was there a deliberate course change? Why was there radio silence? None of this adds up.
Another possibility is the involvement of Captain Zahari. Some investigators believe he planned the event. They cite a flight simulator found in his home with a route toward the Southern Ocean. They point to rumors about his marriage, his emotional state, and possible political frustrations. But this theory has serious problems. Friends and colleagues said Zahari was stable, friendly, and devoted to flying. The simulator route was likely a normal test he performed months earlier. And if he wanted to crash the plane, why fly for nearly 7 hours over the ocean? Then there is the theory of mechanical failure. Perhaps a sudden electrical malfunction disabled communication systems. Perhaps smoke filled the cockpit. Perhaps the crew fought for control before being overcome. But even then, the aircraft's early turns suggest manual control. A fire severe enough to knock out systems would not let a plane fly for 6 additional hours. Another theory is hijacking. Could someone have taken over the cockpit? Investigators looked at all passengers and crew members, but no evidence of terrorism or hijacking emerged. No ransom, no demands, no claims of responsibility, no suspicious passenger profiles. Another theory is catastrophic decompression. If the plane suffered a breach, oxygen loss would cause confusion, hallucination, and unconsciousness. But again, this does not explain the turning of transponders or deliberate course changes. A more controversial theory suggests the plane was shot down accidentally,
a military mistake covered up. Advocates of this theory point to the rapid disappearance from radar, the lack of debris early on, and government inconsistencies. They suggest the plane may have been destroyed near the strait, and the Southern Corridor theory orchestrated to mislead the search. But there is no solid evidence to support this. Then comes the theory of remote cyber takeover. Could the aircraft systems have been hacked? Some claim Boeing jets are vulnerable to external interference via onboard software, but aviation authorities strongly deny this possibility. Finally, there are theories that stretch beyond logic. Secret landings, rogue governments, criminal operations, even science fiction-like explanations. In the absence of concrete answers, imagination grows. But let's return to what we do know. The most important evidence is the debris found on African coastlines. The flaperon, discovered on Reunion Island, was confirmed to come from a Boeing 777. It carried unique fracture patterns consistent with water impact. More parts found in Mozambique and Tanzania carried serial numbers linked to MH370. This confirms the plane did crash into the Indian Ocean, but we still don't know how, when, or why. The final satellite handshake at 8:19 a.m. is believed to represent the moment the plane ran out of fuel. After fuel exhaustion, the engines would shut down. The autopilot would disengage. The plane could enter a steep spiral, or it could glide for some distance if still under pilot control. Multiple sonar searches covered more than 120,000 square kilometers, a massive area larger than many small countries. Still, the main wreckage was never found.
Some experts argue the plane glided farther than expected. Others argue it spiraled rapidly and lies close to the final estimated point. The ocean floor in that region is rugged and deep, full of underwater mountains and trenches. Wreckage could easily become trapped. For the families of those on board, the uncertainty has been agony. Years passed without answers. Some still believe their loved ones survived. Some believe the truth is being hidden. Some have stopped searching, exhausted by grief. The disappearance of MH370 forced international aviation authorities to reconsider global tracking systems. Rules changed. Aircraft must now share their locations more frequently. New satellites and technologies are being developed to track planes over oceans. MH370 exposed a flaw in the modern world. We believed everything was trackable. But the sky is vast. The ocean is deeper than we imagine, and the world is not as connected as we assumed. So where is MH370 now? Most experts believe the aircraft lies in the depths of the southern Indian Ocean, within a region never fully explored. Water pressure there is immense. The seabed is jagged and complex. The wreckage may be entangled in underwater cliffs or buried beneath sediment. Until the black boxes are found, the final moments of MH370 remain unknown. Was the descent controlled? Was it a dive? Was the pilot conscious? Were passengers alive at the end? These questions remain unanswered. And perhaps the most haunting question of all, could this happen again? MH370 teaches us that even in an age of global technology, a large aircraft can still disappear. Not because the world lacks tools, but because those tools can be disabled, misinterpreted, or rendered useless by the vastness of nature. As we close this long investigation, we remember the 239 people on board: parents, children, grandparents, couples, workers, and friends whose lives ended in the most mysterious of circumstances. We remember the families who waited and still wait for closure. And we acknowledge the truth. MH370 is not just an aviation case. It is a human tragedy. a global riddle, and a reminder of how fragile certainty really is. For now, the ocean keeps its secrets, but someday perhaps the wreckage will be found, the black boxes recovered, the truth revealed. Until then, MH370 remains the plane that vanished without a trace, a disappearance that changed aviation forever.